Hi there, my name is Aya, you're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to talk about my favorite book couples of all time. So basically, like book couples I love. I've read many a book in my day, and romance has always been one of my favorite things about books. Now I do read majority romances, but even back in the day when I read majority young adult, even in those books, I really always have loved the romance aspects of those books. So I have 15 favorite book couples to talk about today. Yeah, so these are really my all-time favorites. I'm sure this list will change and grow in the future. I'll definitely make another video of this at some point, but for now, August 2023, these are my top 15 book couples of all time. This is really in no particular order. The only order I'm using is basically kind of like the size of the books. So I'm going to talk about the books that I don't have physical copies of yet, and there are 3 of them. So the first one is Callum and Ada of the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark. They are the first couple in the series, Brutal Prince. I don't own this book yet, but they just got released again because Sophie recently got picked up by a traditional publisher, so I'll definitely be buying the Brutal Birthright series. But Callum and Ada, I really love. I know a lot of people have other couples in this series that are their favorites, but to me, Callum and Ada are my favorite. They are pretty much explosive throughout this entire book. So they start off hating each other. This is an arranged marriage because of some dumb shit that Ada did, honestly. So they are forced to get married and they despise each other. And I really loved watching that progression of them absolutely hating each other, then coming to respect each other, and then really loving each other. It was so good. I love both Callum and Ada. I think they are perfect for each other. And I actually loved also seeing them. I love that they had the first book because that meant that you got to see them throughout the rest of the books. And the spin-off being very happy together. So yes, if you've not read the Brutal Birthright series, I would highly recommend it. Next are Lillian and Marcus from the It Happened One Autumn, which is the second book in the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas. These 2 are so good together. Once again, I kind of like hate to love dynamic, especially Lillian. Like, he is very stuck up. He's very much British aristocracy, even though he does have some progressive views. Like, he really wants to change stuff. At the end of the day, he's like this very buttoned up Earl. And she's this free American woman who just speaks her mind, does what she wants, very loud. And they butt heads so much at the beginning. Especially, like, you see that in the first book, but especially in the second book, obviously. And I love how they fall in love. It is such a great romance, and I really love them. They are definitely my favorite couple in the Wallflower series. I know a lot of people love the couple in Devil in Winter, but Lillian and Marcus are definitely my favorite couple. I really love watching them fall in love. And once again, I love seeing them in like the next books. Like I'm reading The Hathaways right now, and especially in like the first book, you definitely see Lillian again, and I loved, you know, how she's changed because of him, but I also loved how he changed because of her. I think they're so adorable together. Next is a couple that didn't actually exist, but it's Hermione. I love Draco and Hermione. I love fan fictions about Draco and Hermione. I do have to say, I read them more back in the day than I do now. I have a couple on my list that I definitely really want to try. I have read Contradictions, and I really love that one. And obviously Manacled is on my list. I've not read that one yet. But I do feel like I've always said this, that if Harry Potter was a different kind of story, if it was like a young adult fantasy romance, Draco and Hermione would definitely be a couple. I love their potential, and I love seeing all the different ways that fanfiction writers use them to tell a story. Especially, like, obviously Hate to Love is a very easy thing to do with them. It's pretty much a bully romance. And yeah, I just love the fact, like, I love those kinds of stories. Like, I love the premise of it, that he hates her for what she is, like, pretty much, you know, a mudblood. And then him falling in love with her, like, that is just ultimate peak romance trope right there. So yeah, if you also love Draymini and you have some recommendations for me of good Draymini fanfictions to try, definitely let me know, because I would love to read more. Like I said, when I was like 12, 13, 14, I read a bunch of them, but I couldn't tell you what the names are because I have no idea. But yeah, I just love the idea of Draco and Hermione together. Okay, now for my 3 mass market paperbacks. Let's just start with Lisa Kleypas because I already talked about Lisa Kleypas. This is Mine Till Midnight. This is so far my favorite in the Hathaway series. I do have to say there is the 4th book that I have not read yet. I'm very intrigued by, so that couple might actually overtake this one. But for now, Cam and Amelia are definitely a favorite couple of mine. I love them together. You know, I love how her family is like not a traditional English aristocratic family. And in comes Cam, and Cam just, you know, falls in love with Amelia and falls in love with her whole family. I love them together. I love how much he loves her, and I love how she loves him as well. I don't really know what to say about this couple. I think Lisa Kleypas really knows how to write romances. Like I only have 2 of hers in here, but I could have had a bunch more. But I decided to pace myself and stick with Lillian and Marcus and Amelia and Cam. And also what I really love about this couple is their passion, because Cam's very passionate and I love that she loves that as well. You wouldn't think so when you first start reading this book, because she's basically doing everything to hold her family together and doing the right thing and being like pretty much the head of the household, even though she technically isn't, and how Cam kind of loosens her up a little bit and frees her in a way. So yeah, honestly, if you've not read Lisa Kleypas yet, I would highly recommend it. Never Seduce a Scot by Maya Banks. This is honestly one of my favorite books of all time, and this couple is definitely one of my favorites. Basically in this book, these 2 are forced to get married. He's a Montgomery and she's an Armstrong, and basically those 2 families have been at war for generations. Her family members have been killed by his family members and vice versa. Basically, the king has ordered them to get married, but there is a problem because Eveline, everybody thinks that she's touched in the head. So Graham goes into this marriage thinking that he's doomed because he's not the type to cheat on his wife, but he's also not the type to force sex on a girl who's not really in the right state of mind to consent to that. So he's a very, very good man, but basically he's like, this is it. Like, the king has doomed me. I can never have children. So that's kind of, it's actually a very sad beginning. But what Graham doesn't know is that, and nobody actually knows, Eveline, she's not touched in the head. She's deaf. And she kind of put on this ruse because she was supposed to marry somebody who's very cruel and vicious. So she basically felt like, let's just pretend everybody already thinks I'm touched in the head. Let's just keep this ruse up so I don't have to marry this awful man. But now she does have to marry somebody else. And she's immediately intrigued by Graham because his voice is so deep that she can actually hear, like, when he speaks. Like, she cannot actually hear the actual words he's saying, but she can, like, feel the vibrations of his voice. And slowly but surely, he finds out that she's deaf, and he, you know, they fall in love. And I think they're so, so adorable together. I love how much he loves her. He's such an honorable man. And that was very clear from the beginning. I love how she feels so safe with him and his clan. Well, not his whole clan, but his family. Yeah, I think they are so beautiful together. And like I said, this is definitely one of my favorite romances of all time and one of my favorite books of all time. So, and this couple is just perfect in my opinion. The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn. This is definitely my favorite Bridgerton book. I love this book with my whole heart and soul. Once again, a kind of like, I wouldn't say it's hate to love, more like very much annoyance to love. I love these two together. I think they are very fun together. I think they're very funny together. I laughed out loud in this book several times. Basically, Anthony needs to get married, but he doesn't believe in falling in love. So he basically selects like the belle of the ball. And that so happens to be Kate's sister. And Kate overhears him saying that he's never gonna love her. So, and she loves her sister, so she wants more for her sister than that. So she basically goes on her way to sabotage this courtship and to basically do everything in her power not to have these people get together, but that also means that she has to be in proximity with Anthony a lot. Because of that kind of forced proximity, they start interacting a lot and they start falling in love, and I think they're so amazing together. Like I said, first of all, I really love them, but I also really like it. Just solidifies it. Them being my favorite couple just solidifies for me in every book in the Bridgertons, and also in every epilogue and second epilogue, because you see them a lot, either only Kate or only Anthony or both of them, and every time I see them I'm like, yes, Julia just keeps reminding me why they're so great together. Especially their second epilogue is also my favorite. I think it was like hilarity, and I just love them. I love them so much together, and yeah, it's definitely my favorite Bridgerton book and one of my favorite historical romances. And I do really need to reread this at some point. Rhys and Vivi from the Ex Hex. I don't know why, I honestly don't, but this couple just somehow has a chokehold on me. I love these two together, even though, like, this is kind of a second chance romance, even though they weren't really together long in the beginning. Basically, this is the story about they used to be a couple, and then he left her, broke her heart, and she put a curse on him when she was heartbroken. And that curse never really took hold. This is about actual witches, by the way. It never really, like, it never worked until Rhys came back to the town where Vivi lives. And that's when all the bad luck anybody could have just comes upon Rhys. She is kind of forced to help him, even though she doesn't want to. And I love these two together. I love, like, if one thing I really love in romance is when there's, like, lightheartedness. And I really love funny heroes, and I do think that Rhys was very funny. I thought he was hilarious, and I love these two together. I did read the second book in this series, and I didn't love it nearly as much as this one. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I cannot really articulate why I love this book so much, but I do think it has to be the couple because I really love them. Yeah, this is just kind of a comfort read for me. I recently reread it, and I loved it as much as the first time I read it. I love the whole small town in this book. And I really loved the way these two loved each other. And I really love the whole second chance aspect of them falling in love when they were kids, and now them falling in love when they are actual adults. Like, they weren't technically kids, but they were very young. And now they're very much older, and, you know, this time their love feels truer than it did back then. Yeah, I also really loved seeing them in the second book. Like, my favorite moments were seeing them in that book. Kate and Willa from Heartless. I know everybody and their mother has read this book and loved this book, and for a very good reason. This is a grumpy sunshine single dad nanny romance, and I absolutely adore it. I love these two together. I love how he so slowly softens for her, even though he has been attracted to her from the very first moment he lays eyes on her. And I love how she kind of quiets down a little bit. What I mean to say is, like, she's kind of all over the place, doesn't really know what she wants, and him and his family kind of center her a little bit. I love these two together. Willa is hilarious, and I love by the end that they, like, literally, like, they have a family together, like, because obviously Kate has a son. And it's just like this family unit that I really, really love, even though the chemistry is there from the beginning, and they pretty much don't really deny that they are attracted to each other. The whole them doing something about it and the whole romance, it does take a while, which I really love. Yeah, I think these two are perfect for each other. I think she makes him less serious and he makes her a little bit more serious. So they basically meet in the middle, and their chemistry is off the walls. They're a very hot couple together. I just really loved it. If you've not read the Chestnut Springs series yet, and especially if you've not read Heartless yet, I would highly, highly recommend it. Violet and Nico from Witches Get Stitches, the third book in the Stay Spell series. They are my favorite couple in this series. This is my favorite book in this series. I think these two are so hot together. I love how he has been pining for her for years, and she also is pining for him, but she doesn't want want to feel feelings for him. She basically just like keeps him at a distance. And I also really love the fact that like everybody knows how he feels about her, and it's her that actually makes that first move for them to finally be together. I love werewolves. I love werewolf romances, and I really love this one. I think they're so good together. I love this type of romance. It has been built up in the first 2 books, and then this book, it just explodes. I really love it. And yeah, like I said, the first 2 I liked, but this is the first one I really, really loved in the series. Twisted Games by Anna Huang. I was debating between this one and Twisted Hate, but I think this one edges it out a little bit. This is about Rhys and Bridget. Bridget is a princess of a Genovia type place, a made up country. And Rhys is her bodyguard. And this, once again, Grump Sunshine and Hate to Love a little bit, because he just does everything he can to keep her at arm's length. She used to have another bodyguard that she had a very close relationship to, but he left to go on why is that such a hard word for me to say, paternity leave. And now she gets Rhys, who's serious, who comes up with all these different rules that she's not used to, so they basically butt heads a lot. And he's very grumpy and she's very sunshine, but there's obviously attraction there. And because events that happened in the last book, she becomes pretty much a little bit of isolated, and he's the only one that she kind of can interact with on a regular basis. So she's very lonely, and I love how he, even though there's still kind of some issues there, I love how he kind of tries to make her feel less lonely, and how he, like I said, how he softens for her. And their like once they do get it on, it is explosive. It is so hot. Like Anna Huang knows how to write spice. And this book definitely solidified that for me. This was so unbelievably hot. And I really love them together. I always love when there's a book where there's different kind of social classes. You really see that in historical romances a lot, but I love it when contemporary romances do as well. This is basically a forbidden romance because she's gonna be a queen and he's her bodyguard. I just love it. I really love this book, and I really love this couple. And one of my favorite movies of all time is The Princess Diaries, and especially Princess Diaries 2, and this gives me all the Princess Diaries 2 vibes. So if you also really love that movie, if you've not read this book for some reason, I would highly, highly recommend it. The Bully by Sophie Lark. This is basically, like I said, I told you guys I love Draymini. This is basically a Draymini fan fiction, except not really a fan fiction, but basically. This is the 3rd book in the Brutal Birthright series, and the Brutal Birthright series takes place in a Hogwarts-type place. And in the first book, Dean was very much the villain of that story, basically a Draco Malfoy-type character. And in this book, we get his redemption and him falling in love with Kat. And I really loved it. It was so good. It was so good. This is the spiciest out of all of Sophie Lark's mafia romances. Basically, Dean sees Kat doing something in the 2nd book, so he has that over her. He basically blackmails her to become his sex slave for the month, and that's basically how they fall in love. I love this book so much. I love this couple. I love how she's this shy mouse type character in the beginning, and he basically just like wants to use her, but slowly but surely he can see that, you know, even though she seems shy, she's very fierce. And, you know, and I love that for her. Like from the very beginning, she was intrigued by him. And even though this is kind of a blackmail type situation, she kind of enjoyed it throughout the majority of it happening. I love how much he loves her and how much he's willing to fight for her. And I just love them together. It was so perfect, this book was. And yes, it takes a lot of books to get to this one, but like I said, there's plenty of Sophie Lark couples to love along the way. So I would, like, even though this is definitely one of my favorite books by her, I have loved a lot of her books. So it's definitely not a chore to read so many books to get to this one. Okay, for the next couple of books, I actually have some artwork to go along with it. So these are basically the most popular couples, I think. The couples a lot of people will know about. The first one is Will and Tessa from the Infernal Devices. If this was written today, and if this was an adult romance, this would probably be a polyamorous type of situation. But as much as I love as much as I love Gemma and Tessa, I have loved Will and Tessa more for a lot of my life. This is set in, I think, Victorian times. I have no idea. Anyway, it's basically a historical romance. Yeah, Will, I love. He's, once again, a funny character. I really love funny characters. And I love how heartbreaking their story is. I love that, you know, the first book, he does some dumb shit for reasons. And I love the progression of their love story, and I love that we got to see a full, well-rounded love story for this couple. Like you follow them. If you count the epilogue in Clockwork Princess, you follow them throughout Will's entire life. I love this book. I love this series. I love this couple. I really should do a reread for this trilogy soon. Yeah, I think this definitely is a blast from the past, but I have loved them forever, and I think I'll continue to love them for the rest of my life. Next is Nina and Matthias from the Six of Crows duology. So Six of Crows has 3 amazing couples, and I was debating between Kaz and Inej and Nina and Matthias. At the end of the day, I think if you see my list, it's very clear that I love hate to love romances. I just do, and especially hate to love where the hate is basically ingrained from a very young age in one or both of the characters. So in this book, Matthias has been taught to hate the Grisha for his entire life. And you see in flashbacks them falling in love for the first time and him just hating her for the fact that she's a Grisha, and them slowly but surely falling in love. Let me actually take it, hopefully. Like, this is a matte. I think this is better. Yeah. Him just hating her just for the fact that she's a Grisha, and then him slowly but surely realizing that what he's been taught has been wrong, and that he really needs to change his views on them, and them just falling in love. And yeah, I cannot say a whole lot about them as a couple because it will spoil stuff, but I really did enjoy their love story, and it's definitely one of my favorite love stories of all time. Okay, and this video will end with my favorite Sarah J. Maas characters. So my favorite Sarah J. Maas characters from the Throne of Glass series is Lorcan and Elide. Obviously there's a bunch of romances in this series. Too much, maybe some would say. I think I would say, honestly. But even though technically I think that, I still love this. And this is one of the last relationship that was established. I love this story. I love their romance. And the only thing I'm sad about is that we didn't get it earlier. Obviously, that was not possible. Basically, Lorcan is the grumpiest of all the grumps. He's an immortal warrior. He basically just living his life serving his evil bitch queen, as Aelin would say. Living his life, and then he stumbles upon Elide. And basically he is so strong. He's like the strongest warrior of all time. And in comes Elide, who's very weak, and she is very injured as well, and basically very fragile. And he kind of uses her for information. He knows she's connected to Aelin somehow, who he has issues with. And I love how they slowly fall in love in Empire Storms, actually. Like, at this point, a lot of characters and character relationships were already established, and I loved seeing this couple falling in love. Yeah, I just love how she changes him for the better and how he's willing to do anything for her. And I also love that even though he's the strong one and she's supposed to be the weak one, I honestly think that she could definitely live without him. He, however, cannot live without her. Obviously they love each other, and she obviously loves him, I know that, but I don't know, I really love this couple, and I just wish we got to see more of them, honestly. And last but most certainly not least, I think this is a lot of people's favorite couples, Rhys and Feyre. Yeah, he's, first of all, he's definitely my favorite male character of all time. And I just love them together. I love how their relationship comes about. Actually, I think it's very realistic that she, you know, I think a lot of stories paint an unrealistic view of relationships. And I do think that Sarah J. Maas, even though it brings us a lot of anxiety when she introduces a romance in like a new series and we're all wondering, is this going to be the one that she's going to end up with, because we have been burned in the past. I do love that she falls in love with somebody and she did meet them at that time, but she realizes that, yeah, maybe this is not my forever person, and then she realizes who is. I do love that. I love their dynamics in the first book. I was always intrigued by Rhys, and I love how she slowly gets to know him in the second book and knows his family, the people he loves most, and how they slowly fall in love. I know that he knows that she's his mate, but I mean, being mates and actually loving somebody, to me, are two different things. And yeah, first of all, he's perfect. He's perfect in every way a man can be, in my opinion. I love how he just wants to unleash her. And I love the ways he does that. And I love how they both have, I don't love it, but I mean, I do love how they both heal each other. They both have dealt with some significant traumas in the past. And, you know, the way they heal each other, the way they are there for each other. And I just love watching their relationship grow in the second book, in the third book, and also in like Nesta and Cassian's story. I love how Rhys and Feyre are still very important part of their story. And I just love them. Like, this is my favorite romance of all time. And it never gets old to me. Like, I can reread this book over and over and over again and still feel the same feelings I did when I first read this book. Like, I read this book right when it came out. So let me actually see when that was. Yeah, May 2016. And I have loved them ever since then. So they have been with me for a very long time. And I don't think I'll ever not love this couple. Those were my 15 favorite book couples of all time. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you agree with any of my choices or if you disagree. But please, like, don't hurt my feelings too much. And I would also really love to know what your favorite couples are. As you can see by my list, it doesn't really matter to me whether they are in actual romance stories or if they're in like other fantasy stories. Sometimes those are actually my favorites for some reason, because it's kind of unexpected to me. Like, in a romance, you expect for there to be a couple that falls in love, whereas in fantasy stories that aren't marketed as romance, that's not always the case. Although I do have to say, with the young adult books I did mention, it was very clear that there were going to be romances in them. But yeah, definitely let me know if you agree with my choices, and also let me know your favorite couples of all time. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.